Hey, this is Bug Powder Dust. Thank you for joining me for episode 2 of my colony tutorial. And we left the previous episode with our brave trio having just completed a room with a roof, as we can see. And it's time to move on and time to get some of the home comforts into the room. Now at this stage, we have electricity. We have the ability to construct things with electricity and also air conditioning. This is going to be quite important as well for getting a freezer up and running for when we do hunting and stuff. However, we want to get the basics down first. So basics really is a bed to sleep in, a light source for this area because it's not just their bedroom to start off with, and also a table and stools or chairs for them to eat at. Otherwise they'll get a debuff saying ate without table. And it's only a small debuff, but these all kind of stack up as we can see. And it kind of makes them not as happy as they could be, basically. So what we'll do is we'll get some light and some chairs and some beds in here. Now, one thing that I did in the last episode, was that when we completed this structure, the last section that goes in to make it a complete square or rectangle or a room, basically, it then auto roofs. Now what I tend to do these days is I tend to turn off auto roofing. I think it might be an option down here actually, I can't even remember. I'm not exactly sure, but if it is, no. So what I tend to do when I'm making a square is I say remove roof area, like that. So in the last section, so in this instance the door was the last bit to be put in, they don't roof it automatically. The reason I do this is because if there's no roof on it, it means that they will benefit, or the area will benefit from daylight. So we can see here down the bottom, 55% daylight, right? Because it's getting towards the end of the day. So what that means is if they do any constructing in this area, they benefit from daylight, provided they're not doing it at night, of course, and generally they won't be. And it will make their constructing speed better, quicker, and a lot more effective. There's less chance of them bodging a job, and also be much faster. So if you're ever doing any build or any work at all in the dark, get a light source in there as soon as possible, because it does make a huge difference to everything, basically. Don't ever do anything in the dark if you can avoid it. It's quite critical. So let me just undo that. Okay, fine. But instead, what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is get a torch lamp in here. Okay. So we need to chop down some trees. I think we have some wood already down the bottom. And did we create a zone here? Yes, we did. We created a zone here for bringing all these things up. Now, what's going to happen is Jonathan's going to build a light source, which is brilliant, which means we can then build some beds. In fact, I think we're going to build a table first. And the first thing to do before you build a table is to look around, because sometimes there's tables on the map, and we can see there's actually a table here we could go and nab. We can claim it, and then once you've claimed it, you can then reinstall it or uninstall. Now the difference between these two is if I click on reinstall, it asks me where do I want to move it. So you're effectively moving the table. So in this instance, yep, brilliant, let's move it down here. If you click on uninstall, what it will do is it will queue that table up to be put in a box, basically, and put into storage, and that will then get dragged into your storage zone if you have it configured for tables. So that's pretty much the difference there. Okay, so we're going to get the table. Meanwhile, we are going to make some stalls so they can actually use the table. Having a table on its own isn't enough. They need to be able to sit at the table, or they'll get that I didn't eat at a table debuff. So just because it's a lot cheaper and quicker, you can build a stool, 25 wood, as opposed to a chair, which is 45. We'll get to the chairs eventually, but let's just bang down some stools first. 3 people, 3 stools. We have the wood here, so they're going to get on that straight away. Alright, good. And then while that's being done, we'll queue up a bed for everybody. So 3 beds, 1, 2, 3. Now, as I said, this isn't ideal because it's obviously a barracks, but this is really just to start off with, and it really doesn't make a huge bit of difference. Point is we have light, which means that building the beds and the table and these stalls is going to be much quicker than it would be normally. And while we're at it, honestly, we can try and beautify the area a little bit, stick a plant pot in, it'll get some flowers in and make the area just a little bit more beautiful than it could be. And we could just complete the flooring in here just to avoid any debuffs. So if you click on the beauty display down here and then hover, we can see which areas of the room are actually causing problems, these -14 and -9 numbers. The -14 is probably going to be dirt, the -9 is going to be potentially dirt with a little bit of lack of floor showing through as well. Now, some dirt is worse than others. Vomit and blood specifically are particularly icky, which you can understand. We haven't got any of that on the map at the moment, I don't believe, unless they vomited when they came out of their sarcophagi, which doesn't look like it. Yep. So once these are done, what I'll then do is I'll then try and get the colonists to prioritise hauling, which is something that we'll do with the scheduling button. So while they're doing that, let's speed that up a little bit. The other thing that you can do is if people are sleeping outside and you just built a bed for them, you can, and the bed's ready to go, you can just click on them when they're sleeping, click on draft and then click on it again, and that will basically wake them up. And then they'll automatically think, oh, I want to go back to sleep. Oh, but there's a bed now. Then they'll go and sleep in the bed. So that's pretty useful. If you're wondering what this is, by the way, it's a ship chunk. You just click on deconstruct and it'll give you components, which are these things, which are super useful. Just not so much right now when you don't have any electricity. Okay, so we've got the beds, we've got the tables. That's fantastic. All right, next thing we need to do is build a kitchen, a butcher table, storage, because all this is still out in the open, and that's not ideal, to be quite honest, because it's all deteriorating, as we can see. Deteriorating, it's unroofed, it's outdoors. Some of it doesn't deteriorate. Stone blocks, as you would appreciate, doesn't deteriorate. So we need to kind of focus on that next. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out, kind of plan out where we want our kitchen, our butchery and our storage to be. Just to, you don't have to go mad on this. Some people really plan to the nth degree, which is great. Some people let it grow organically. I think I'm probably one of those people. My bases are never that neat and structured. And also we need to get this medicine under a roof as quickly as possible. This stuff becomes quite important. So let me just, I'll plop down some plans and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put down some plans. Now you can use the planning tool. You go to, orders, plan, and then you can make marks. And the good thing about this, you can use it to measure distances. It tells you how many tiles you're going along, you see. Or right click to cancel, and then you can remove plans by just doing that. Now again, there are mods which allow you to use colours, and again I'll cover that in the mod section, which we have probably towards the end of this series, just the mods which make life a lot easier. But for the purposes of this vanilla tutorial, we can see here what I've done is I've marked out an area for the butchery, the kitchen, and for the cold store. So they will butcher an animal, which they'll get from the freezer, butcher, put the meat back, then the cook will come in here, take the meat, cook it, put it back in cold storage. The point of this is that the butchery and the kitchen are entirely separate. Don't ever have these in the same room. Simply because the butcher's table creates a lot of blood. And blood is filth, and really quite filthy. If you cook in a room that is filthy, you stand a very high chance of getting food poisoning. Food poisoning is very bad. It slows your pawns right down, and it's just a general pain in the neck. It takes them a couple of days to get over, or a day or so. So the idea with this is that they're separate rooms completely, and the pawns themselves don't have to track through the kitchen or track through the butcher area to get to the simple meals which they'll bring back to the table here to eat. The point of this is that dirt is obviously a big thing. If we click on this, we can see that this is largely a dirty area. Lots of minuses here. So we want to keep that dirt down as much as possible. Now there is an argument for making rooms just out of dirt floors, which is valid to a point, but I like to have floors in my bases just because it appeals to me. But there is certainly a school of thought that says just use dirt floors, which is fine as far as it goes. I kind of get that because dirt floors don't get dirty. Now, colonists will track dirt in from the outside. So if you're coming in from a dirty tile into a clean tile, they'll track some of that dirt in with them. So if there's an entrance you use a lot, you probably want to pave it. There's lots of different flooring options here. At this point in time, once you research, you get more flooring options given to you, but these are the options that you start off with this particular scenario. Now there's a lot of differences between these, and I will cover these in a little bit more detail, but what you should know is that the difference between sandstone tiles and flagstone tiles, read the description, that does kind of give you an idea. They cost the same, they're quicker to put down, but they don't get any buffs from them, whereas these, you need slightly higher construction needed, but you do get buffs from the floor being made of tiles. So for instance here we can see you got ones and ones, and the flagstone which you've got here, you don't get anything from those. And also if you deconstruct these tiles, you get some resources back. If you deconstruct these, you don't get any resources back whatsoever. So that's one thing that I learned not that long ago actually. I was on the map and I was setting these to be deconstructed, because you can, using the floor option, remove floor, you can actually click on these and get them to be deconstructed. Complete waste of time. Unless you want to change the floor and put something else down, it's a complete waste of time actually doing this. Indeed, even then it's a waste of time, because you can just put a fresh flooring type on top and it will just remove the previous tile anyway. So really, if you get flagstones, don't bother with them. Unless you're desperate for a cheap floor quickly, I wouldn't bother with these whatsoever. Alright. So that's what we've planned out. We are going to make it out of stone where we can. We've got lots of granite, 153 granite, so let's go with that for now. Granite walls. I'm going to build the storeroom first because we need to get stuff stored really quite quickly because it's all deteriorating. So we've got how much across there? We had 35 plus. We've got to take these pillars down. Let's go as far as we can, and then we'll get rid of these. Let's deconstruct those, and we're going to get rid of the sleeping spots. They're no longer needed. So they'll get right on that, and then we can get this enclosed. Okay. Now the thing to bear in mind here is that these torches do warm up the area a little bit. They're not as good as campfires, which are obviously these things here. If you put a campfire in here, it's really going to heat this place up. You don't generally need to light bedrooms, but as I said, this isn't just a bedroom. This is, you know, where they eat and all the rest of it. So yeah. And if you want to see what a room type is like, you can click on one of the items in the area. And it tells you it's awful. And it tells you why. It's dirty and it's ugly. So we can fix that by flooring and cleaning the area. Meanwhile, Fleming is cracking on with this. And while he's building that, so we'll probably skip forward while everyone's sleeping. Alright, so it's the daytime. Other people have got up as well. Now what we're going to put in here, we're going to put a door in just to be useful. And probably one at the top here. Just give them some good access. Fill in these with granite wall. So that's all cool, and we got our storeroom. So let's expand this up. And as I said at this point, so at the moment, as I covered earlier, this hasn't got a roof on it at the moment. As soon as Jonathan finishes this square, they'll then go around and roof all this. Now, if you were building more items in here, say lights or beds or workstations, then you could do what I suggested and take the roof off, remove roof area. You'd do that, okay? Then what would happen is this wouldn't get roofed. So any building they do would have the benefit of daylight. However, in this instance, I'm going to let them do that. Then they're going to start roofing straight away. All right. Okay. So this now turns to be inside. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner where it says need recreation variety, you can see it says indoors, which means that this now is no longer deteriorating. So what we want to do is now start bringing in all this good stuff, and it will get put in the stockpile, which you'll see here. They bring that in. Perfect. So now this will no longer deteriorate, and that is critical. We don't need stone blocks in here. The stuff that doesn't deteriorate can go outside. So what we'll do is we'll create a stockpile zone just outside. In fact, we can just make this bigger actually and use this stockpile zone for now. We'll want to fine tune this a bit later on when we start cutting stone at a stone cutter's bench, which is one of these. Obviously you want this to be near this. Otherwise he's going to be walking massive distances backwards and forwards, and that's super inefficient. But for now, what we'll do is we will get the stone blocks out of there. In fact, gold, jade, plasteel, silver, steel, uranium, these all don't go off. Wood will go off if it's outside. It takes a long time, but it will do it. And we will put all of those in here as well. Apart from wood. Plant matter, yeah, want that inside as well. Cool. Right, so that's that done. So they can now shift the stone blocks out of here and over to there. Fantastic. So we still have some slate left to start building the kitchen and the barracks. And what we can do is we can actually start to take down some of this wall up here, because I don't want to build my base out of wood. I need to go back and undo that afterwards, because a fire could potentially end your colony. Because you think, well, I've got 3 people, I can put the fires out. Yeah, what happens if a fire takes place when 2 of your people are injured and one of them doesn't firefight? You can say goodbye to your base. Trust me, it does happen, especially if there's boomalopes on the map. I've almost lost one colony. In fact, it was my faction side colony, which pretty much burnt to the ground. Yeah, it's not good. And it's embarrassing if it's on YouTube as well. So, all right, so we can deconstruct that. The other thing we're going to do is also rip up the floor here. This is the tiled floor that you do get something back from. So let's live off the land a little bit and take that down. This is steel. We're not building walls out of steel. Steel burns. It burns slowly, but it burns. So it's a bit counterintuitive. Just be aware of that, okay? Now you notice that Jonathan ate just over here, so he didn't eat at a table, so he'll have a debuff again. The table radius, I think, it's like 25 or 30 squares. So if they are 25 or 30 squares away from a table, they will just basically have a picnic. And Rimworld colonists don't like picnics. They must eat at a table at all times. Kind of frustrating. So you can see here the tables here. If I just drag a line, you can see that it's 38, 39 away from these guys. So there's no harm in actually putting a table and chairs if you're going to be operating in an area, mining or cutting trees. Just put a table out here in the middle of nowhere. It's absolutely fine. Alright, so they've got all these lovely blocks. Now what we can do is you can actually queue up orders. Hold down the shift key. So for Jonathan, I'm going to press the shift key down, right click and say haul. Same for Eugene. He's removing the floor currently. We're going to hold down the shift key, hold down the right click, which means that you're effectively telling them when they finished pulling up the floor, do the hauling. The reason I've done this is because hauling is kind of low down in this scheduling list. And what happens is they do the things up here first, and then they go downwards. Higher priority, lower priority. So they start up here, and then they go down. Hauling, cleaning, researching is all down the bottom end. So what they may do is they may take up the floors and then wander off and go and do something else. Maybe they're going to construct something, or they're going to mine something, or whatever. So in order to get them to do the hauling, you just need to do a little bit of micro, as we can see. Perfect. That's brilliant. Great. So now we can see, because they're on the zone now, on the stockpile zone, it now registers it up here. We've got 135 granite blocks. Beautiful. So let's crack on with getting some granite blocks up, and we're going to build all that. That's 30. That's 40 at 75. 125, which is what we've got. So that's fine. Now we can finish the rest off with slate. Maths was never my strong point, as you can tell. All right, so let's do that. And fantastic wooden door to form the doors of these areas, and that's awesome. Oh, I actually did that by mistake. That's bad. Okay. Awesome. Now one thing to point out is that this does form a seal. If it's a diagonal block like that, this doesn't count as an opening, these bits. It bothers my OCD, so I'm going to fill that in. So I'm going to stick a door in here as well. Although we don't have, it's warm, we don't have enough wood, so we may need to do some wood cutting. So at the start, it's all a bit micro-y, to be honest, but it's fine because, you know, we're getting the most important stuff up here. And there's no harm. Also, we got a little bit of spare slate by the looks of it. So what we can do, we can plop down some slate tile just to fill in these blocks, so it's a bit more pleasing on the eye. And we are. That's a whole day gone, and yeah, the base is really taking shape now. This is great. Now the idea here, actually, what I need to do here is I'm going to cancel one of these, and I'm going to put in a cooler. Now, this is very important. We're trying to cool this area here. This is going to be our freezer, okay? You don't want the exhaust, that's the red section, this side. So what happens is it's going to cool the bit in blue, and it's going to blow out hot air on the red side. So this is the correct way around. Now there is some mileage. Some people say, well, why don't you do it like this? So you're venting hot air into one of these rooms, because these are going to be the bedrooms. Or you could say the freezer was here, you could vent hot air into this room. And that is valid, that's absolutely valid. The trouble is that unlike a heater, you can't modify the temperature. And this is venting hot air 24/7. So if you have a heat wave, there's nothing you can do about it. This cooler has to keep running. In fact, you probably want 2 or 3 coolers in here if there's a heat wave. So your better bet is, don't worry about it, just vent this hot air and control the temperature in here with other methods. Let's get rid of that. Now, the reason I'm not putting a door in here, or a door in here, is that people could take a shortcut through, and you don't want that. What I am likely to do is not put a door in here, though. That's probably not going to be very efficient, actually, come to think of it. I'm going to put in doors probably there and there. So when they're done here, they just come out and go in like that. It's going to be much quicker. Let's label that. Okay. Good stuff. Alright, now the other thing I wanted to show you in terms of food, which is actually quite nifty, and I didn't know this until recently. Say you have some wild berry bush growing out here, right? And it's not quite ready to be harvested, as we can see. It's only 84% grown. You could harvest it now, but you might get less of a yield. You can basically set and forget. You do zone, growing zone, and you highlight what you want to get done. And then you set that to allow sowing off. Now what this means is that this is irrelevant. okay, for this particular instance. What will happen is any people who are good with growing or have got to a point where they're going to do their growing work here will come out here and they will harvest these berries automatically. So anything you see on the map that's growing wild, you can, and that's the same as hill root for here, for instance, you can just basically create a grow zone like that. Turn off zone. Lovely. That's actually very effective. Okay. Something to bear in mind. Again, I didn't know that until recently. I was just like doing it manually. If there's a clump of them, absolutely. And there's no harm in doing that. They will grow in the same spot every year, provided they don't get destroyed for any reason. Okay. All right, good. Yeah, so what happened was Fleming botched constructing the cooler. Some resources wasted, so they'll just have another go. All right, it's all getting roofed. Beautiful. We can actually cut that hill root. I'll click on harvest because it's 99%. We can grab in that medicine. That turns into medicine, which is super important. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of all these. Now, the other thing that you can do is with dogs is you can actually train them to haul, which I think I showed you in the previous episode. Super useful. Dogs are really, really good haulers. The other good thing about dogs is that dogs do not generate filth. Very important. So they can basically troop stuff all around your base and pick stuff up, and it won't create filth in your base. So that's really, really important. They will obviously track dirt around, as do humans, but they won't generate waste, generate filth, unlike beasts such as the muffalo. Let me just demonstrate the muffaloes. 2.63. That's really quite filthy. Dirty, dirty creatures. All right. So while they're doing all that, let me demonstrate what this is. Now, most maps, I'd say 80% of maps in my experience, 85% have these. These are called ancient dangers. Now, if you move a pawn, you actually see here, see Eugene's harvesting the berry bush? It's one of the bushes that we designated as a growing zone, so he's now harvesting that in, which is great. Also, we've got a patch here we might as well do as well, because you know what? Everyone likes free stuff, don't they? Everyone likes free stuff. All right, anyway. So if we get... so Jonathan's harvesting the hill root here. Let me just let him finish that, and I'll show you something regarding the ancient danger. Something you may or may not be aware of. Right, so we're going to draft Jonathan just so we can actually get his attention. We're going to put him over here. As soon as you get near to an ancient danger, it will tell you. See? Ancient danger. A sense of foreboding overcomes him. Now, ancient dangers are a source of some really lovely loot, potentially. Now, they can contain a variety, or solely, mechs, ancient soldiers who will spill out of crypto sleep caskets, and insects, or a combination of the three. Now, the ancient soldiers, the old soldiers, will generally be in the crypto sleep caskets and whatever else is alive and patrolling. It can be mechs, it can be bugs. Sometimes it will be nothing patrolling, just the soldiers in the caskets, but that's quite unusual. But there'll be good loot in here. Now, at this point, we don't have, I don't think we've got the ability to take these guys on yet, but certainly we will revisit this. Most maps have one of these. And you can tell because they're it's an obviously man-made shape. Sometimes they're a lot more hidden, but they'll always be a little bit poking out, so you can always see it quite easily. As I said, maybe 1 in 10 map squares don't have them, but it's quite rare. Okay, so we're looking good. We've used all our stone beautifully. We've got that ready to go. We have run out of granite blocks here by the looks of it, so I think the next thing we need to do is deconstruct a little bit more. Is that slate by the looks of it? Get some slate deconstructed. Get that done. Now, we could build a stone cutting table and start doing all this for us, making blocks for ourselves, but I don't see the need. Let's just deconstruct a lot quicker, and we'll do it here as well. Now, at this point, we're not worrying about food too much because our food supply is actually pretty good for now. We've got 31 survival meals. These guys eat 2 meals a day. Okay, so they eat 6 meals a day. We've got 5 days worth, so we've got plenty of time. We do need to start thinking about getting some electricity up, but that's cool. And really, the first thing you need to be researching as well is batteries. Batteries are critical. They store energy, obviously, but they are really, really super important. I mean, you need to get those ASAP. Now, the bedrooms at this stage are not that important. I think it's probably better if we get. It's interesting. I can't. Why is it still just sat there? Okay. It's holding the door open, as you can see, which is not ideal. I mean, it's not the end of the world, frankly. So Blackwell here, he's come to visit, and we can see he's got some stuff maybe that he wants to trade. That's actually quite handy. What have we got that we could trade with him? Probably not a great deal, if I'm being honest. We could trade with some wood with him, because we've got a lot of wood. See if he'll buy it. So okay, so what you can do is we can see here. Let's have a look at who's got the best social skill. So social is 8. And I'm pressing the pointy arrows keys, or the comma and full stop, depending on what sort of keyboard you've got. Social 13. Okay, so the person with the highest social is going to be the best at trading. So let's have a quick chat with Eugene to our man here. Or is it a woman? I don't know, can't tell. Where is he? Up here. Blackwell. Blackwell is a man. Okay, let's come and talk with Blackwell. So he's going to come and talk with Blackwell. Now when you do that, you can see at the top, because the negotiator's got good social skill, we're getting a 20% uplift on prices, which is actually really nice. Now we can see that the trader's not willing to buy these things. We've got 800 silver. We could sell them some packaged survival meals, but we kind of need those right now. Sell them some components, but what we want in return, I think the jump packs would be really good, but honestly, I think we're trying to jump before we can walk. If you excuse the terrible joke. Penoxy could be quite useful. Now, what Penoxysilene does is it stops you from getting, as we can see, malaria, sleeping sickness, plague. Could be quite useful. I think that could be quite useful this early on, and I'm actually tempted to take that, actually. How much would that be? 223. I might sell them 10 components instead to offset. Components, we got loads of components on the map, and at this stage, components are not super important. We'll have 15 left, but Penoxy will stop us getting these illnesses, which will take us off our feet for quite some time. So I think it's actually a really good trade. Some of you might disagree, the more experienced players, but I love Penoxy. As soon as I can make it, I make it. So I think I'll go for that. That might work actually quite well. Yeah. Okay. So Penoxy. So this is actually a very good introduction to the drug policies tab. So at the moment, the drug policy, everyone is on the social drug setting. So it's a little bit daunting to start off with, but as I said, just hover over everything. It really does help you. Okay. So what we're saying is here, with Penoxy, we're not allowing them to take it at all. But what we do is we can take it on a schedule. Now, Penoxy doesn't need to be taken that often. High duration per dose. So every 5 points, let's say every 6 days. Every 6 days they can take Penoxy. It's got nothing to do with mood or recreation. It's a preventative medicine. So that's absolutely fine. So that's good. And also keep one in your inventory. What does that mean? It means that they will actually put one, if you go to gear, they'll have it in their inventory. So Fleming here is carrying a packaged survival meal. So is Eugene. So is Jonathan. Now what this means is that they'll all go and grab a Penoxy and they'll start taking one of these. There we go. So Fleming took one, as in he's eaten one, and he put one in his pocket. See? So this will last him for 133 hours. So this is just an early stage of, this is what, 3 doses? So this will last them 18 days, which is fine. It just stops them getting any early illnesses. It does happen. And when you've only got 3 colonists, having one in bed all the time with potentially something bad is not great, if I'm being quite honest. So that's actually pretty useful. All right, so that was actually quite useful. Quite useful demonstration there. Okay. Now, in terms of building a butcher's table, we can stick that in there. We can put the cooker in here. We don't have enough wood. And for the electric stove, we're going to need power anyway, and 80 steel, which is fine. So really the next thing to be doing is let's get some power set up. Now, there's a couple of options here with power. How much time do we have? Okay, we are coming to the end, but I'll go through this, and then we'll actually expand on the power in a little bit more detail in the next episode. When you first start, you've got a few options for power, and indeed in the research it gives you some idea of what else you can get. Now, batteries are critical because they will store the power that you generate in the day, otherwise it's just wasted. So say you set up a solar panel, which you don't get off the bat, and wind power. That's great. Wind power is fantastic, but it's very much if the wind's not blowing, you don't get any power. However, if you've stored it in a battery, you can use the power that you've stored already. If the wind drops and you've only got a windmill, you get no power. So obviously batteries are going to be doing their job as a buffer. Solar panels really important, I think. You probably need to do batteries and solar power. Really useful in conjunction with each other for obvious reasons. At night, there's no light, so no power, but it stores in the battery. And then further on down, you can get other forms of power as well. We don't have a river here, but you can get river power basically, which are pretty good, constant source of power. But really, the first thing that we need to be doing is just getting a windmill. I think windmills are actually very effective. What we'll do is we'll pair up a windmill, one of these, a wind turbine, with a wood-fired generator. These things are quite inefficient, but we do have a lot of wood on the hex. So we will get one of these, and we'll get one of these. We've got plenty of steel, just not right now. We've got plenty of steel here. We can mine it out. Plenty of steel here. So we'll do those. We're going to set up a wind turbine. Let me just put these on the map to remind me for the next episode. And the thing with the wind turbine is you need to make clear some space around it. I'll show you a little trick of how to do that. Let's put that down. I guess the thing you don't want to do, you can't move these things once they're down, so you don't want to put them where you're going to be expanding your base. So I think I'll put it here. Okay, so that's going to be put down. Now, see this border here? This border means you've got to keep this area clear of high items, so things like trees and walls. In this game, walls are considered to be infinitely high, so you don't want to build any walls or anything in this area. If we build it here, these trees are going to slow down the effectiveness of the windmill. The other thing we're going to build is a wood-fired generator, which we'll put it just, I don't know, put them there. Okay, now there's a trick to keeping the anything growing in this area. Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. You can actually just concrete it down completely, like so, or maybe pave tiles. It's okay, but a more elegant way of doing something here is by putting down a growing zone, like so, and also at the back. Now nothing will grow in these grey areas here, which we can see is rough slate. But we put down like a growing zone here and here. And we'll cover growing zones in the next episode as well, because it's something we haven't done just yet. And obviously that's going to become important. We want to start growing our own food. But first we need the electricity, so we can start slaughtering some buffalo and cooking some food for ourselves. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of episode 2. I hope that's been useful. I hope there's been some tips in there that you maybe didn't know about, or things in here that you found useful. And we'll be back in episode 3 in the next day or two, and we'll carry on with the whole electricity thing, start doing some research, start cooking our own meals, and then look at defences. And this is where it gets a little bit fun. You take care of yourself. This is Bug, pulling the plug.